another What a Shout. Welcome back to the studio, brought to you by the Racing Post every Friday, looking at the big calls on all the big races with our sponsors Bet365. Myself, Dave Orton, back in the chair. What a weekend again it is. Group 1 action all over the place. Despite that, we called it the Cambridgeshire weekend, just one of the best flat handicaps anywhere on the globe every year. Who've we got for you this week? That is the question. Former International Trainer of the Year, Group 1 winners all over the place. Delighted to say, joining us from Manton, Brian Meehan joins the panel. Brian, thanks for coming on.
Morning.
Happy days. You've actually got us up a little bit earlier than normal, Brian. It felt like we were riding out this morning. I mean, I work in horse racing. Paul Kealy's back on the panel as well, Paul. You don't mind getting up early, but the hours used to be sociable. I don't know about this.
I get up with a crack of the dawn, but the dog's well upset because I didn't have time to walk him this morning. I had to jump on the train. So
is that right? Was it nice and blustery out there? Or
it wasn't bad this morning, but it's now hammering down. I think we're getting the rain that Newmarket was supposed to have got last night. But again, apparently it's hammering down now at Newmarket. So looks like it's going to be soft ground.
This crazy year continues to change, doesn't it? And winter looks like it's in the air. Brian, let's talk about this year. My goodness gracious me. Listen, COVID hit. How on earth did you cope with lockdown? But since you have come out of lockdown, let's face it, things haven't been too bad for the Manton Yard.
Yeah, it's good lockdown. It was very strange, really. I mean, nothing we'd ever experienced before. I was training when we had the foot and mouth crisis, which was pretty disruptive, but this was just completely out of the ordinary. But it was fine probably for the first sort of 4 to 6 weeks. We got lots of things done, and it gave us a chance to just take things a little bit more step by step than rush into the start of the season. But towards the end, it was pretty trying.
Yeah. Now let's just home in on the start of your career, Brian. See if I've got this right. Did you start training in 1993 after you were with Richard Hannam for a bit? I sort of remember that. I got into racing in the late 90s. Kills will definitely remember that. He's a tad older. But it was 93, wasn't it? And your first Group 1 winner was one of our favourites. If you don't know, younger viewers out there, who Tomba is, look him up. Kills, you absolutely loved him as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I love a sprinter anyway, but he was just a good, solid, soft ground horse, handled ground really well. And he sired a horse called Ballesteros, another horse that I really liked. It was a soft ground sprinter as well.
For the goods, of course.
Those exactly. Yeah.
Famous colours. Brian, he was the horse that really put you on the map.
Yeah, I mean, there were probably a number of horses around about that time, but the horse that goes out and wins the Group 1. I mean, funny enough, we'd run him the weekend before in Germany, and he was on his way home, and we discussed it, John and Pauline Good and myself, and we thought, he's on his way, he's coming by Paris, let him take his chance,
It was the Prix de la Forêt, of course. And the one thing that's synonymous with your operation, Brian, is how well you do travel your horses. I mean, you've literally run Group 1s all over the place, haven't you? We can get some horses up. Yesterday, we tried to compile a top 15, 10 horses. Honestly, the list goes on and on and on. If you're out there and you've got the means to do it, Race on Interactive we were using, have a look at this list. Talk about a trip down memory lane. It was really, really enjoyable. Let's have a look at how you've been getting on this year in particular, though, Brian. I mean, things have been going rather well. 17% strike rate. I think you're something like 4 from 14 with first time out 2-year-olds, and the level profit has gone rather nicely for punters out there. So you're their pal.
Yeah, no, it's good. Really happy. I mean, I think I tried to say it, but perhaps lockdown may have had something to do with it. I wouldn't put my finger on anything in particular, but I've got a really good team. Everybody, works like mad. The yard kicks off at 5:15 every morning, and everybody works really hard. It's always, it's all down to the horses, really. It depends how good they are. I mean, all we do is feed them and take them to the races, really. It's a little bit of planning, but I'd say they are a particularly nice bunch of 2-year-olds, and they were last year. So the 3-year-olds this year, very, very nice. I've probably taken slightly different paths with the likes of Arthurian Fable, Cepheus, Reek, etc., because they missed the first part of the season like everybody else. So they've stayed on the handicapping route for now, but I think they're very good horses.
So yes, so slightly quieter this weekend, but that's going to change. And don't worry, Brian has won most of the races this weekend as well, so I think we might get a steer, don't you? And also waiting in the wings, as ever, from our sponsors, Pat Cooney joins us, Bet365. Let's have a little look at where Pat is at the moment. He gets around, doesn't he? Now, this doesn't look like the living room, Pat.
No, I'm currently in a hotel in Newmarket, just off the high street, about 5-minute walk to Sir Mark Prescott's and about a mile to the track. And I can tell you it's wet and windy as we speak right now. So keep an eye on the weather for the next 48 hours.
Very interesting indeed. We'll try and get a steer on what the ground might be on the big Saturday for you. Pat, I believe you might have a couple of questions for Brian, do you?
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, Brian. One question I've got for you, a good trivia question was put to me the other day. 4 horses have beaten Enable in their career. Who are they? And it's very easy to say Volgeist and Gay. You go to Shutter Speed, who beat her at Newbury as a 3-year-old. The horse that was runner-up that day was a horse called Raheen House, trained by a certain Brian Meehan. And I was wondering, did you realise Enable was going to have the career she went to finishing behind you that day?
Well, I knew, I think going into the race, I do remember there was big talk for Shutter Speed. And I knew that, well, no, I didn't, to be honest. I didn't know anything about Enable. I mean, she was a nice filly. She was coming from a good setup, you know, beautifully bred filly. We were full of it with our horse. No, I didn't. I had no idea she was going to go on and be one of the greatest mares ever trained. But all the talk was for Shutter Speed that day.
Raheen House, he was a decent horse as well, Brian was. He's actually running this weekend, I believe, now down in Ramwick. That's where these horses go, of course, when their opportunities become slender here. Yeah, Shutter Speed, I remember I was there that day. Do you remember that, Keels?
Yeah, I do remember. And I remember a lot of pundits saying afterwards that, you know, forget that run. Shutter Speed will be the best in that race.
Yeah, French Oaks, all that sort of thing. Yeah.
Imagine getting it that badly wrong.
Exactly. Don't know what you're talking about. Okay, let's have a look at what's coming up on this weekend show for you then. Okay, we'll be looking at the hot topic. I think you all know what that's going to be this week. We'll be getting Brian's steer on that. We'll be looking at the racing clues from the past week. We'll be giving you all the big race previews. A couple of Group 1s in there. Happy days. And of course, the big calls on all the big races before the weekend naps. If you'd like to sign up to our sponsors, Bet365, now's a great time to do so. We have a referral code. It's SHOUT365. That's £5 minimum deposit for up to 100 bet credits. Terms and conditions apply. Right then, time for the hot topic, because this week, as we well know, just as Warwick had a pilot event, 1,000 spectators back in. There's a bit of a theme here, guys, isn't there? Unfortunately, Boris Johnson came out and said in his briefing, in the week, was it Tuesday evening, wasn't it, Kills? No more spectators at any sporting event, possibly for up to 6 months. Oof. Blow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complete disaster. It's a catastrophe for the sport. It's a catastrophe for all sport, obviously. Racing relies an awful lot, well, racecourses specifically rely an awful lot on people coming through the turnstiles, especially the bigger tracks. I mean, you know, I think York said it was 80% of their revenue. Which is an awful lot. And the longer this goes on, we're not talking about whether a racetrack will close, we'll be talking about how many. And it is a frightening situation. We've got the owner situation, obviously, as well, and the prize money situation. But the fact is, we don't get people onto racecourses, then the sport is in serious trouble. Now, people are allowed to go in pubs. Shopping centres are absolutely rammed. Oh. My train was rammed this morning. Most of racing takes place outside. You can socially distance easily. I mean, I'm sure they can put up temporary, marquees to keep people out of the bad weather that we're going to have coming. It should be doable to have a reasonable size. Yeah. So, you know, they've got 5,000 in France, haven't they? And they've got crowds in Germany. It should be doable. You know, it's not just a case of being selfish and saying, don't worry about anybody else. You know, this is, you know, forget COVID, we need the money, etc. It's about being sensible about a pandemic that's going to be with us not just for the next 6 months, but for a long time into the future. Problem is, it's so contagious. That's one problem. The other problem is that the vaccine is a long way away. And the other problem is that even the flu vaccine is only 50% effective anyway. So if you talk about how contagious this is and the fact that we have a vaccine that is no guarantee of working, you know, any more than 50%, this is going to be with us for years. Right? We cannot, for the rest of our lives, go into hiding, right? Because the entire economy will fall apart. So at some point we've got to say, right, we've got to get on with it and we've got to do it. Yeah. And obviously we're relying on the government. There is nothing racing's rulers can do at the moment. If the government have said, no, that's it, we can't do it.
Yeah. John Gosden was interviewed after a very nice horse of his called Lost in Space ran yesterday. A horse that looks like it's a proper group horse in a handicap. It's going to go on broad, unfortunately, because what's the point at going at the lower level for the prize money that you can get here? He can earn a pretty penny abroad. And John also said you can't go to this government with a begging bowl. racing's lobbying has been weakened in recent years, hasn't it? Is it time for the BHA to start getting the message out there a bit further?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of what they've been doing in the first place, so I don't want to criticise. But I do think they're completely hamstrung by the fact that the government has said no. So you can lobby as much as you like, and if they're not allowing people into Premier League football grounds, then racing's got no chance. And you can bet your life the Premier League are lobbying like mad.
Yeah, my season ticket that looked like it was coming back into fruition at Watford late October has now been put on the freezer. So, yeah, there you go. So, but if you read Bruce Millington's column this week, outstanding column from Bruce, his Thursday column, check it out. A conservative estimate that if roughly 25 people a day went into a pub, that's 325 million a year. That's conservative. I mean, you can't go into a racecourse where 6,000 attend. You know, it does seem mental.
Exactly. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it's not good. All right, so we'll try and look for some positives. But Brian, let's come to you on this. And from a trainer's point of view, what are you going to say to the owners now for the next 6 months? It's extremely difficult, right?
Yeah. I mean, it has been. It's probably not a huge change, really. You know, going forward, we just hope that things were going to improve a little bit. I mean, I agree with everything Paul says there totally. And you know, it's difficult, really, because, you know, there's so much of the social side of the sport is what attracts owners, because it's, you know, for 80% of the people owning horses, it's a hobby. You know, they have to earn enough money to be able to afford a hobby like this. And if they can't enjoy it, then, you know, why bother? You know, you go and do something else instead, because, you know, if you can't go race, if you can't enjoy it, you can't see your horse, your trainer, speak to your jockey, meet other owners, socialise. It's a little bit pointless. But I mean, I can understand what they say about the Premier League. You know, you're going into a stadium, you sit on a seat, you're practically touching the next door person. You know, on a racecourse is different. You know, you can move it around. You know, even the smallest tracks are big facilities. And I would have thought that it would be quite good. Now, maybe it's difficult for them. I've never run a racecourse, don't want to run a racecourse, but it might be difficult to allow people into different areas. The logistics and the cost of that might be too difficult. But I would have thought there's a lot of space, there's a lot of air, there's a lot of room that you could have. You know, I mean, it's been working reasonably satisfactorily what's been going on. So I find it difficult to think that we can't have certainly like members, selective number of members of each racecourse at a time. As you say, you know, shopping centres, etc. The high street's full. It's busy everywhere. I don't know if our lobbyists are strong enough, or even if we have one, for the industry. But I think there's a strong case that we could allow people onto the racecourse in small numbers.
Yeah, and spectators watching in pubs, for example, Keels. You know, my friend runs a pub. They show racing in there, and he's got all the heaters out. He's turned his car park into a marquee. Tables of 6, but they're pretty close to each other. He'll be able to get nearly 100 people in a marquee watching racing, yet they can't go into Newbury and do it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Let's come to Pat with this on this from a bookmaker's point of view then, Pat. During lockdown, thankfully, your turnover was fine. I mean, at the top level, how are the bookmakers thinking about this, Pat?
Well, I mean, from our point of view, the turnover hasn't missed a beat, really. And why wouldn't it? Everyone's at home now having their bets. So it's fine in that respect. But it is that there's no quick fix to it. It's just the shame of it all. I was at the July meeting behind closed doors, the St. Ledger meeting behind closed doors. And you could see all the protocol was set up and it was going to be perfectly run, no problem at all. And I think if the government had sent anybody to either track, they would have looked at it and said, oh, OK, this looks very, very feasible. But I agree with Brian and Keels. You know, owners are in the game really as a hobby. All hobbies cost money if you're, you like your fishing or whatever. But a hobby's got to be fun, and it wouldn't be fun being an owner right now, would it? So I think it's just important all the factions get together. I think the bookmakers are very key in this because they hold the purse strings to an awful lot of these decisions. But everyone has to be on the same side, you know, the owners, the trainers, and everybody involved. But there's no quick fix to this at all. So the sooner we get some sort of directive straight away, the better, I think.
A mammoth rural industry in jeopardy as well, isn't it? So listen, if you're watching out there and you've got any ideas about any positivity out there, what can they do? Is it time to lobby the government? Do put your comments below if you're watching out on YouTube or Facebook Live, however you're doing it. Hashtag what a shout. Let us know. We want to hear. Okay then, racing clues. Let's move on and let's get more positive then. What did we see last weekend? I guess we've got to go to Ayr Keels Nahar. Massive plunge. Unbelievable. Is it 7-2 in the end or something like that in the Gold Cup?
How many of these big plunges come off, isn't it, in these big handicaps? But yeah, I mean, he found a wall of horses to get past as well, didn't he? But then absolutely.
Group horse?
Group horse on easy-ish ground, I'd say, with a stiff track. Maybe a 7 furlong group horse for the future. Maybe. Problem, Brian will know this from stepping up horses into group company, let's say Sparkplug from the Cambridgeshire. Some horses are so well suited to big fields and a real strong run race. Yeah. It's a massive culture shock to them when they go in a 7
into a Hungerford.
When they go into a 7 run, a group 3 or whatever, and you think, well, this horse has got the form to do it, but then it's not the same, and they've got to make that transition. A lot of horses take 1 or 2 runs at that level before they get used to it, you know what I mean? Because they've just been used to be trained hard to go those solid early fractions that they're not going to get.
Yeah, okay. What about a Dave, Brian? That was impressive, wasn't it, in the Doonside Cup, considering he was conceding that penalty. Tom Marquand found a bit of trouble. Probably wasn't his ground either. Is he capable of going one better in a Champion Stakes, for example?
Well, the ground, the key to the Champion Stakes is the horses that handle the ground, really. And, you've got to add in that the Marquand factor at the moment. He's riding with such confidence. He's probably, that's worth about £3 or £4. Yeah. But, the great thing about Champions Day is it comes at the end of the season. I think every horse goes there. I mean, there's always an outstanding 1 or 2, but I would say he'd have a chance, definitely.
Okay, that's very interesting. And just, I want to talk about a horse at Newmarket that won the Cesarewitch trial as well, Brian. Ocean Wind was his name, Roger Teal's horse. They've got a massive plunge horse, which also came off. He won, pulling a cart, if you like, was due to get a £4 penalty. I thought, having written the analysis in the paper, an old boss of mine, won't mention him, phoned me up and said, I think you'll find he's not qualified. Unbelievable, didn't have the 3 runs. How would you be feeling if you were Roger Teal?
Got it.
Yeah. And Kills is thinking, we spoke about this off air. Well, the rules are there, aren't they?
Rules
you were a little bit.
It's up to you. Well, I'm a bit of an old cynic. It is up to you to know exactly what the rules are. They did change the rules for the SES a little while ago, didn't they? I remember Joe Chambers, Rich's manager, ringing me up and said we've got to run Low Sun within the next month or so to get her qualified for the SES. Because she hadn't run on the flat for a while, and they ran her into some Mickey Mouse race at Bellestown to get her in. So it's a strange one because you don't have that many races that have those specific. I can understand it with novice hurdlers. I can understand it with young horses, but for these old horses, it does seem a little bit harsh. But
the rules are out there.
The rules are out there, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Pat, I want to come to you. A horse that you gave a good mention to last week, Alchemate in the Mill Reef. You were impressed.
I was impressed, yeah. I thought he did it in really good style. I suppose going forward, people were asking about the guineas afterwards, and I think he was about 20-1 afterwards. His breeding doesn't scream necessarily a mile. And I was just wondering, looking at tomorrow's races, we've got Minzal, Owen Burrows, same ownership as well. He's going over the 6. So if, let's say, he wins the Middle Park tomorrow, Marcus Horses keeps on winning between now and the end of the year, then that's a headache for the connections of Hamdale McTomb's 2 horses. So one might be Commonwealth Cup bound, one might be Guineas bound. So I'd hold fire on Guineas bets for either, really. But there's no denying he's a very fast horse, and the speed gurus all fell in love with him as well, which is always quite telling.
It wasn't the classiest weekend of racing you've ever seen, but boy, we got some pointers. Okay, then let's have a look at what is a sizzling weekend at Newmarket. Starting off in the 150, the Royal Lodge Stakes. Won 10 years ago this weekend by the mighty Frankel. Roaring Lion won it a couple of years ago. I have to say, Keels, come to you first on this. Every week I have a headache race. This is it.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, it's 5-2 the favourite and 5-1 the outsider, something like that, isn't it? Like, they've all got shots. They're all reasonably promising. Cobb.
Clive
Cox's horse. Clive Cox's horse has 2 wins on easy ground. I think that's going to help. It's worked out reasonably well. I'm a little bit surprised that New Mandate isn't favourite, to be honest.
He's got the form, hasn't he? Yeah.
Officially highest rated horse in the race, 108. He, that race, he's one of those who's come through, a bit slow than some. So he's had 4 runs, but he's really got his act together. He put his head down really well at Doncaster, and he had quite a few of the horses of Gear Up's Acomb victims behind him, and further behind than they were behind Gear Up. So I think he's got the form, and it's New Bay, isn't it? the sire. I think. You know,
Frankie on again. He was masterful at Doncaster.
Fair name for himself, and he looks like he stays the trip really well. So that'd be my tentative selection, but it is a little toughie.
Yeah, it's tentatively for me Ontario, with O'Brien going for a hat trick in the race, third last time out, but that form's working out. Brian Meehan, can you give us some help on the Royal Lodge?
Yeah, I mean it's obviously the first three are the first three in the betting are the obvious ones. I mean, I think, I've got some nice form at New Mandate. I'd like to see him win. I mean, I personally, I think, you got to look at the Group 3 winner going into the race. York, this is a very different track as well. I think it will probably suit him better. 38 days, since he ran. So it's clearly the Royal Lodge was the target immediately, or maybe even before the Acomb. For me, I want to see New Mandate win, but I think it's gear up for sure.
Mark Johnson, keep it simple and go. Probably that's not a tactic that's been bad in this race at all over the years. Pat Cooney.
We're just on New Mandate. I was at Doncaster. He won one of our Bet365 sponsored races, and Frankie rode the winner. That was over 7 furlongs. And I said to him after the race, what plans you think they'll have for him? He said, oh, well, he wants a mile. He definitely wants a mile. So if you're backing him in the Royal Lodge on Saturday, you're going to get a horse that's going to improve again for the step up in trip. So as Keels alluded to, I think, he's round about 4 at the moment. That with the stamina looking like to suit him, you could imagine the public latching onto him. For my sins, I'm going to go for Pleasant Man. And I just thought, all in my racing upbringing, I've always been told you don't back a horse with just one run going into a group race. Well, this horse has got one run going into a group race, but he won well enough over the mile on his debut. And it is Roger Charlton, and Roger Charlton's no fool, and his horses are going well. He's the outsider of the party, but I just thought, he stays, he's in good hands. And I'm breaking the habit of a lifetime. I'm backing a horse in a group racing only its second run. So I'm going to go for the outsider of the lot here.
Breaking habits, 2020, Pat. Everyone's doing it this year. 2:25 then, time for the first Group 1 of the weekend. It is the Phillies Cheveley Park Stakes. 6 furlongs. We always see a star coming in. Now, Brian Meehan, I want to come to you with this. Now, I know it's early. Let's see if I've got this right. You were pretty unlucky not to get a hat trick in this race. Am I right in thinking that? Magical Romance. Oh, and what was the name of the 2005 winner?
Donna Bellini.
Donna Bellini, that's right. And what got touched off in those? Was it Danyata? Danyata, unbelievable. I mean, so look, you should have really nearly had 3 wins in the race. If you could train anything in this year's race, it does look a pretty classy race. What would it be?
Well, I think, it's difficult. I think it's a really serious contest. Looking at it, there's some really quality fillies. But I do love the way Happy Romance just keeps upping her game all the time. She just keeps getting better and better. And the Salisbury race is a very, very good trial for the Cheveley Park if you haven't already been winning Lowthers and, getting placed in Flying Childers and things like that. But Happy Romance for me, she's a serious improver. She looks a really classy filly, especially last time.
Interesting. Okay, Pat Cooney, give us a market update. How's she looking in the market?
Well, she's solid enough at 5-1. I keep thinking she's underrated, this filly. As Brian says, she just turns up and wins, doesn't she? But she's 5. There's 2 shorter than her. Dan Darla, Ben Curtis, Carl Burke are favoured 11-4. And Miss Amulet, the Irish filly who won so well at York. So a wide open race. I actually do like the Happy Romance Salisbury form. And on that basis, I thought Alcohol Free was a solid each-way claim. She won first time out, and then stepped up to finish second to Happy Romance last time. She was beaten on merit, but that was only her second run. Happy Romance is a little bit more battle-hardened. So I can make a case out for Alcohol Free round about 8-1 with a Sheen Murphy aboard. It's that type of race. It's a hot quality race. And I don't think there's much between the main protagonists in this race by any means.
I'm assuming you think that's a dreadfully named horse.
Alcohol Free, yeah, it's a dreadfully named horse, but might win.
Oh, really?
Might win, yeah. No, I like her a fair bit, yeah. It's one of those. She ran in a Dick Paul. She was second. She was beaten 3/4 length by Happy Romance, a couple of lengths ahead of Scarlet Bear, who got closer to Colton at Ayr last time. So that form is solid.
Yeah.
If you look at that Salisbury race, she was running all over the place in the last furlong and a half because she asked to race properly for the first time, and she was just a bit too green. But she was closing again on the line. She's closing again at the line. And I just thought she shaped really, really well. She's going to have learned plenty out of that. I mean, she does need to step up. But the early season form might not be as solid, might not be as strong. Remember, we thought Dandala was an absolute superstar
So,
when she bolted up. She
So
won
when
by
you
6
looked at
lengths.
this race, did you look at Dandala and think,
I
right,
absolutely looked at. That's the first one you look at. I always look at the favourite first, anyway. But you know, she bolted up in the Albany, but time has told us that there were some pretty average horses in that race. Right. The second run, the next run was good though.
when she
'cause
beat
obviously
Fevrover,
she
who's
beat Fevrola, Santosha. They both won group races since. It's solid. It's solid form. But was she an early juvenile? She's 78 days off. It's an unusual, not unprecedented, because I think Clemmy went straight from the Duchess of Cambridge and won this 3 years ago for Aidan O'Brien. But I mean, virtually every other winner has run, you know, in the Lowther, in the Dick Paul, or in something in the run up a month or so beforehand. And I just wonder, you know, if you just said after the Duchess of Cambridge she'd be 11-4, you'd have thought you were mad. You'd have thought she'd be 5-4 for this, wouldn't you? But other horses have come out. Miss Amulet is officially the best horse in the race now.
Yeah, it's one I like.
And she was really good. I mean, four of the last 10 Lauder winners, I think, have gone on to win this. And she did look very solid. There's no reason why Sacred should beat her again. I think she's the one to beat. I think she should probably be favourite. But I'm going to take a chance on alcohol-free because I really like the way she's shaped.
On a collateral line, you think the Miss Amulet and Sacred, much I love Happy Romance, that Queen Mary, it's the one time when she was well beaten, wasn't she? That form is sizzling. Sacred was readily ahead of her that day. Sacred, for me, does have a little chink still. I know she wasn't done too many favours.
Well, they put the pieces on, haven't they? So
Exactly. And if that works, she's a proper top-notcher. I guess if there is one in the pack that's going to be the brilliant horse, it could well be Dandala. But I agree with you. As a favourite, around about 11-4, that was Fevrover. You know, was she really the real deal that day? So I'm not sure. She might even be the one to take going forward, wouldn't she? Cheveley Park then. Fascinating race. Listen, it's not just about Newmarket this weekend. Look who's back at Haydock.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to day 4 of the festival. The runners coming out onto the course for the JCB Triumph Hurdle.
We knew that he was seriously good, you know. He's well capable of doing it.
Goshen, brilliant winner of his 3 starts over hurdles so far by a total of 68 lengths.
On paper, it looked as good a Triumph Hurdle as there'd been.
And they're off!
But everything was effortless, and I couldn't believe how easy it was panning out.
Goshen looms towards the outside. It is Goshen now who turns, takes the lead and kicks clear.
We were both going steady going to the last, you know, and then what happened, I just felt sick.
It is Goshen. They are clear now by 10 widening lengths. The final flight for Goshen.
I still think about it every day.
What happened.
As we enter a new National Hunt season, as always, all roads lead to the Cheltenham Festival. Building to that point, this Before the Raw journey starts at home at my family's yard and picks up with one of the biggest stories of last year's festival and potentially the superstar of Cheltenham 2021.
He was bought to go jumping. He was schooling from the age of 2 anyway, you know. Before he finished his end of his runs on the flat, he must have jumped 25, 30 hurdles anyway, you know.
He's a fine, big, strong horse. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's very genuine. The simple thing with Goshen is that he can just run faster than any other horse. He's got some engine that I've definitely not felt before.
You can hear him a mile away. He's a high blower, which is something I don't mind, you know.
Worried the life out of me when I first heard it. I thought there was something wrong with him. It's just a dream, and sometimes I'm still pinching myself thinking, really? You know, and I pick up the newspaper and there's Goshen on it and I'm thinking, am I involved with that? You know, I've had horses with Gary for a few years. He called me and he said, oh, found a horse in France, and then it failed the vet. So then a couple of weeks later, Gary called me again and he said, I've got another horse. It's not a horse that I would normally buy, but we took a chance on him. So the story is, if the other one had passed the vet, I probably wouldn't have bought him. So it was a little bit of fate, shall we say.
How do you find it working in a family environment?
I think the good days are better and the worst days are worse.
Right.
Because you're that attached to it all, and there was no one I felt for more than Dad when I fell off him at Cheltenham.
They are clear now by 10 widening lengths.
Goshen, he's always had the option to go down to the right. I pinned him up against the rail, which I probably shouldn't have done.
One more flight to take.
All of a sudden, he's got his the front foot and his left foot caught together, and that's when he's jolted again, and that's the one that sent me down to the turf.
He makes a desperate mistake. He hasn't seated his rider when holding a 10-length lead. Burning Victory has won the JCB Triumph Hurdle.
In such a bizarre incident that I've never recalled or seen before in racing.
No, that's right. I've never seen it, and I probably never will see it again.
You and I know that he didn't do anything wrong. And it was just a freak accident.
There's a few people I wanted to shut up and who kind of knocked the horse, you know, but he just showed how brilliant he was in a true run race, you know.
Everybody says the noise when he was unseated was incredible. And conversely, everybody that I speak to that were in sort of pubs and things watching it, it was deathly silent.
I've still played the race in my head a million times, and you need to right that wrong, what happened.
He'll never get over that. It's something that'll stick with him for the rest of his life, you know, but you have to get over it, you have to move on. The main aim will be the champion hurdle.
I know it's the one race Dad has always wanted to win.
I feel very confident, you know, he's well capable of doing it.
I certainly wouldn't want to swap him with any other horse in the race.
If it does happen, it'll be the biggest thing in my life, really. Jamie and Goshen deserve a shot at redemption. They both deserve better than what happened to them.
For the horse as well, because he deserves to be a Grade 1 winner now. He grew all through the season last year, like, bulked up.
He's about 10 kilos heavier than what he was. His backside is stronger and his neck carries more condition on it as well.
It might play to his strengths the next season, that he's had a relatively easy time and he'll just carry on progressing.
To have a horse of that standard with a chance of winning is incredible.
Besides Grooves, he was a great horse, the best horse I've ever trained, but I do feel this horse is better.
There we go then. Big time ahead for Goshen. It was the look away moment, wasn't it? Unbelievable in the Triumph.
I mean, you're not going to see. I mean, you know, it's an Annie Power moment, wasn't it? You know what I mean? It's just as unlucky as Annie Power.
Yeah.
Had the race absolutely at his mercy. Made a mistake. Now he made a mistake at the last flight, virtually every race, but got through it.
He went to the right all the time.
I mean, getting your foot caught, one foot caught up in another. And slinging a jockey outside. I mean, that you couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, absolutely bolted up. And I mean, you've got to listen to the trainer because he doesn't, you know, Gary Moore's not the sort of one to say, I've got a great horse unless he has, is he? You know what I mean?
And he was quite touchy about him last year in the media, which is unlike Gary.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all that talk, but I mean, you know, last year in the Triumph, we all thought there's going to be a really strong pace here, and pace is going to collapse, but it didn't collapse.
He's just a monster,
isn't
he?
Collapse. Others, you know.
So he wins on Saturday, we're thinking.
He wins on Saturday. He's got 3 wide margin flat wins to his name as well, hasn't he? Like, you know what I mean? He wins on Saturday.
Long distance cup at Ascot, he is entered in, so it'll be interesting to see if he wins half the track and then goes to that, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would do. Yeah.
Let's talk about the jumps for him though, because we are now. It's warming up, isn't it? Gordon Elliott in the paper this week gave us a lovely preview about what he's going to do at Down Royal at the end of October. That lovely meeting. What a star squad he's got. There's a whiff of jumpers back in the air. Happy days. How do you expect him to fare?
I don't know. It's one of those ones. It's a difficult. You know, everyone says it's difficult for a 4-year-old. 5-year-old going into the champion hurdle. Obviously, we had a winner. I can't remember the name of it. Espoir Dallin, which I
Catch It was the other one, wasn't it?
Catch It was the other one. So I mean, it can be done. He does look special. He does need to step up a stone on his juvenile form. You know, that is. You know, that goes without saying virtually every year.
Yeah, I wonder whether he wants a bit of a trip as well, because I've got this thing about...
Well, he's a stayer on the flat,
exactly.
Isn't he? He's a stayer on the flat.
Doesn't always work out.
Yeah, you know, Royal Gate was a stayer, wasn't he? He won a champion hurdle.
If you talk to his biggest fans, they're like, this is the champion hurdle. Let's come to Pat on this. What sort of price are we looking at then for the champion hurdle market, Pat? And is this a ride we should all just get on and enjoy?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're 4-1 him and 4 Epatante, who is the reigning champion. Of course, she retains the mare's allowance, so... In the form book says Epatante, they say don't oppose champions, so she deserves to be joint favourite at least. It was just the manner of Epatante. I was there that day and I was thinking, well, this is one of the greatest sights I've ever seen in jump racing. He had the Triumph Hurdle won from a mile out, and he would have probably won by 20 lengths or so. So it was spectacular. And I think there's a bit of goodwill involved, isn't there? We were all sick for the connections afterwards. So I hope he comes back and wins. But I think he may just be ground dependent. So he probably always want to get his toe in. So I think connections will probably plot their way around. But he's a fascinating horse. And I hope he wins the champion hurdle next year, just for the connections, really.
Get your comments in. Is he a champion hurdler? Time for the big calls then. Are they going to be heavyweight calls this week? Well, I'm going to home in on a jockey. I think James Doyle is back riding brilliantly. The man that comes in for the golden spares at the moment. I think the Doyle will have a fantastic end to the season. I just think when he gets these horses rolling, he at the moment he's having trebles and doubles everywhere. Stick with Jamie Doyle this season. Pat, you've got another Jamie that you like.
Yeah, I thought it was just good to see Jamie Spencer back in business. He's certainly got his mojo back. He missed most of the season with a bad injury, but he rode a winner folk dance at Newmarket on Saturday. And if you backed the horse, I didn't, but you would have been in heaven just watching Jamie just sit motionless.
4-1. It was. Look it back on your members club. It's one of those, isn't it? He did something like that at Wolverhampton and another extremely progressive.
That's right. And there's no finer sight if you're a punter and you back one, and you can see Jamie just sitting there motionless, and you think, aye, this is one. And good to see him back. He's been sorely missed. He divides opinion, that's for sure. But when he's good, he's very, very good, and great fun to watch. So I wish him well for the rest of the year.
There's no worse sight if you're on the runner-up either when he comes and does that to you. Brian Meehan, a big call.
Well, first of all, I mean, you're talking about two serious riders there. I mean, they're top flight riders. They know what it is to ride Group 1 winners. They're both Icemen. You know, great riders, great respect for them. I got a run with a very nice 2-year-old last Sunday at Chelmsford. He won a novice, Decisive Edge. I think he's a very serious horse. I thought it was really impressive for his second run, beating a 91 odds-on shot. So I think definitely one to follow. I think he's a really, really, really nice horse in the Dewhurst. Could be a Racing Post Trophy horse even. But leading on from that, which I thought, we talk about prize money and we moan and groan all the time. I mean, he won about £3,000 that day. The next winner for the yard was a winner of a 0-55 at Kempton on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night. Minnie Milk. She was well fancied. I think she's probably better than her mark, and she won £2,500. And I can't really figure that out. That really is, if you want me to have a little bit of a moan and groan this morning, that doesn't make any sense to me. That a 2-year-old can go and win a novice at a track that's well used by very nice horses, and he wins £3,000, and a 55 filly can turn up at Kempton and win 2.5. Somebody make sense of that for me.
This is a strange year, isn't it? And prize money is a serious issue.
55 rated filly isn't winning too much.
No, yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's just they're not, they haven't got the money. They're not putting the money into maidens. I can sort of understand not making maidens too valuable, but I mean, prize money's too low all the way around, really, isn't it?
It was a problem before 2020, wasn't it? Just remind us of your Racing Post Trophy winner, Brian. It's now called the Vertemturity, of course. So listen, this horse that Brian's given you out there, we need to take this seriously. Was it Crowded House, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Lovely horse, Crowded House.
Looked like he was the absolute real deal. He went on to win some very nice races.
He won by a mile, didn't he? He absolutely hacked up, cruised through St Nicholas Abbey.
Oh,
was it?
Oh,
did he beat St Nicholas Abbey?
It was that. Yeah, it was that generation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to talk about that race because Brian also has the accolade of training the most unfortunate named horse in training, and it turned out it was rather good as well because you had the third that day as well, Brian, didn't you? Skanky Biscuit. I mean, what was the owner thinking? How did that get through? Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, good old Skanky Biscuit was 1-3 in the Racing Post Trophy for Brian. See, I have done my homework, Mr. Meehan.
And the winner ridden by Jamie Spencer.
And there you are. Indeed, so there are the links. Okay, last but not least,
right, now you left me last because I couldn't think of anything. But as you were going on the jockey's team, just think about this. We've got Tom Marcon. We know how brilliant he is, and he is going to be a champion jockey contender for years to come.
Amen.
But isn't Holly Doyle too? Now, okay, she's a woman, let's get that out of the way, but she's also one of the best jockeys around at the moment. She is going to smash very soon the most number of winners in a calendar year by a female jockey, probably 2 months before the end of the year, and having had a 10-week break in racing.
Remarkable.
So, what happens when they go home for dinner next September in the evening and they're neck and neck for the title? What goes on there, eh? How do you think that's going to pan out? How long will that relationship last when they're trying to bash each other up every single day? Oh. It'd be fascinating. They're two fantastic jockeys.
Paul Kealy, he can think on his feet. 3 o'clock back at Newmarket. Just another Group 1 for you. It's the Middle Park Stakes. Best sprinters every year tend to get sorted out in that. Before we go to Brian Meehan and Paul Kealy to see what they make of this year's generation, let's get a market update from Pat Cooney.
Yeah, favourite at the moment, 5-2-ish, is Minzal, who won so well at York for Owen Boas, Jim Crowley. Second in his method with Martin Mead, Frankie Dettori aboard, 2 runs, 2 wins. And at 7-2, there's Lucky Vega, so unlucky in Ireland last time around. Shane Foley coming over, that's got to be significant. And then Supremacy, Clive Cox, Adam Kirby. And all of them have got decent chances, really. They're all got good-looking lines of form. And then it's 10 bar. I'm attracted to the 10 bar, really, with Tactical. And I've always thought you can forgive a horse a bad run. And I always work on the basis, if you take that race out, what price would he be? Well, Tactical would be in the mix for about favourite-ish, wouldn't he? So I'm going to work on the basis Tactical. It didn't work out in France for him last time. He's a Royal Ascot winner after all, and he can back him at 10-1. So I'm basing my sums on that basis, thinking there's not much value at the top end of the market because they've all got rock-solid chances. So I'm with the Queen on this one. Tactical for me each way.
Yeah, well-named odds, because it didn't work out tactics-wise, did it, in France? He was drawn away from...
But the ground was very soft as well, and that I was going to ask there, Pat. It looked quite bright out that window there. Was the rain stopped, or was it still hammering down?
It's still rain at the moment. It's yes, it's grey and murky at the moment, but we've been here before at Newmarket, haven't we? We get an hour of sunshine and all of a sudden it's fast ground again. So definitely one eye on the weather for doing your sums for the Saturday racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very difficult. Now, this is a fascinating middle park, isn't it? I mean, I thought, after seeing Method win at Newbury, I thought, this horse is going to end up 5-4, 6-4 for a middle park, because he showed an absolute blistering turn of foot. Beat Mighty Gurkha, who came out and won a Group 3 at Kempton next time. Smashed Fevrover first time up. But again, he hasn't been seen for a while, and other horses have come through and shown an awful lot more. And now, if they were running the handicaps, he'd be getting a fair bit of weight off the likes of Minzal and Supremacy and Lucky Vega. He's rated 117. He got Method's on 106. I still like Method, but I don't know anything about the ground with him, which is a bit of an issue. The Minzal and Supremacy, I question them. I think they're wide margin winners against average horses. Just don't think the form of either one has worked out particularly great. So not 100% about those two. And then you come back to it. Yes, Lucky Vega was unlucky. They want to come straight back out and have another go at a Group 1. That says something. Lope to Vega, going to get softish ground. I backed Method earlier in the week. The weather forecast was like, might get 2 or 3 mil of rain all week. He got 17 on Wednesday. He could end up with 20 on Friday.
But it's blustery, isn't it? We know how
it's
it
blustery,
dries.
yeah. We do know how it dries, but I mean, it's autumn as well. Like, you know what I mean? We're not talking, you're not going to get, beams of sunshine coming down at 28 degrees or whatever. So they ain't going to dry that quick. Yeah. So I'm leaning now further towards Lucky Vega.
Now, okay, before we go to Brian and get a word on Method, because I think Brian might have something for us on that. Do you actually think he'd have beaten Thundering Moon with a clear run?
I'm not sure that he would have done.
I don't think he had a hope of doing
I'm not sure that he would have done. He was unlucky in running. He might not have won, but he'd certainly have run a very, very good level of form in getting beat. Yeah. And possibly better than those two that have won.
That was over 7, sorry. He's back to 6. I don't like afterthought horses. And you're telling me that if he won that a couple of weeks ago at the Curragh,
he wouldn't be here,
he's not coming here, is he? He's looking at a duo.
I mean, they obviously think he can win he can win a Group 1 and they want to have another crack.
I backed Thundering Moon for the 2,000 guineas. I should get that out of the way, and I would like to see the form boosted. There's another horse that could do that in there as well for him as well. But for me, it's Supremacy. I've just kept it quite simple. Clive Cox, this just looks like a horse that's still got a bit more to offer for me, and I like the way that, like you say, there's a couple of horses that I've got a little bit to prove. I think Adam Kirby will keep it simple and he might just pick it up. It was a price thing for me. Brian, let's go to you, middle part. Now, your neighbour, Martin Mead, isn't it? Who, of course, houses Method.
Absolutely, yeah. I know they're very, very happy with him. He's a lovely horse. I mean, I think it's a standout, really. It's what they love to do. Pick a horse like that. They know he's good enough and they lay him out for it.
Yeah, and of course, they know how to do this with advertise and the likes. And
would he have said anything to you about the ground? Would he be bothered about that? Do you know?
Well, we don't sort of bring up and discuss each other's runners and entries that often, really. We do like to break bread from time to time, but you've got to think about the ground at Newmarket, and you've also got to think about how they handle the dip. When they get to the top of the dip, and then they got to roll down, and two times out of 5 jockeys will come back to you and say didn't handle the dip. And it's not so much about going downhill and going up a hill. It's the position they're in and what stage of challenging they're in when they get to the top of the hill. So if horses haven't run there before, it's a slightly unknown, really. I mean, it's not like you're coming down the hill at Epsom or Brighton, but the dip at Newmarket can be significant. You've got to love Owen Burrows' horse. I mean, you know, he's done so well. But you know, if I'm asked who I think will win, I'll go with Loyalty, stick with Method. I don't think the other horses are good enough. I think Lucky Vega coming over from Ireland after 13 days, you know, it's just massive risk. You know, Jessie's a tremendous trainer and she wouldn't do it if she didn't think it was right. But I'm just looking at the race clinically. It's the top two for me. The others don't get close.
Okay, there you go. Listen, it's a fascinating race. Let's hope we see a star in the Middle Park. 3:35. Now we're talking. The cavalry charge that is the Cambridgeshire, as I mentioned at the top of the show, despite the fact there's Group 1s all over the place. This is what we call Cambridgeshire weekend. Brian Meehan, let's go to you. You've pulled it out of the bag. Old spark plug 2016. Got the job done for you.
So look, it's a very difficult race. You got to think about draw, where the pace is, you know, where the speed is early on. I mean, you could pick out any number of horses in the race tomorrow. I think it's a good quality Cambridgeshire, good renewal. Depends where the pace ends up. But, you know, when I look at Ryan Moore doing 8 stone 9, that rings all sorts of bells for me.
Derivo looking down there for Sir Michael Stout. One of a couple of for Prince Khalid Abdullah. Let's come to you then, Keels. Derivo or Tempest?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit worried. Some of those, you know, some of the well-fancied horses are drawn low. Now, last 4 years, winner's been 21 or higher. Looking at this race, well, first of all, they race on the stand side. They race on the far side on Thursday. They race in the centre. They're racing in the centre on Friday. So there's nothing's been on the stand side at all. Going Stick earlier on in the week was suggesting the stand side was marginally faster, and they haven't raced on it. So it might be. Pace is middle to high. You've got Majestic Dawn out of stall 20 last year. Carried them along on the stands rail. He's in 25 this year, so he's going to come out and be bang along that rail as well. So I think it'll be high. I backed 2 horses. I backed Bell Rock of Michael Bell's. I think it's Andrew Balding, isn't it?
Andrew Balding.
Yeah, it's Andrew Balding. Yeah,
I'm on him as well, just to say
that,
just to weigh you down.
He's won both his starts on the Rowley Mile. He took an age to get on top when he beat Uzo first time out of the season in a good race. Looked like he probably wanted further. 6th in the Hunt Cup afterwards. 3rd should have been 2nd to May Danny at Goodwood. Now the winner won really easily, but set a slow gallop.
He did.
Nicked it from the front, and Bell Rock just shapes like a horse that wants them to go really hard and then come through. He's got no form on soft ground, but his 2 most disappointing runs last year were on good to firm, which is half an indicator that he might be okay the other way.
Right.
And I think the mark of 103 is just okay. There are a few a bit higher than him. Sabuska 111. I mean, you know, some horses, you know, you need £10 in hand at least to win a race like a Cambridgeshire. So he's got to be, you know, one of the best horses in training to win that. So I can't have them. And I back one down the bottom. Hayley Turner riding Tull Farris for Charlie Fellows. Just got plenty of solid straight track form.
He's an unlucky horse, this, isn't he? He keeps getting beaten by a head.
It's not brilliant. He got carried a little bit left by the winner at Ascot last time, but he's only had that one run. He goes on any ground. He's been second on good to firm, good soft. So I think he'll run well at a big price. Obviously, you've got the bookmakers. I'm sure Pat will fill us in, offering extra places. So why not have a pop at one at a big price as well?
Yeah, I like Bell Rock. As I said, he's been an eye-catcher in his last 2 runs. Love the fact that he's got that Rowley Mile form. Love the fact they've kept him for this as well, quite clearly kept him for this. I like Dubai Mirage as well for Saib Bin Surur, a 3-year-old that might be going places. Stefano Churchy taking off the £5 and he's drawn on the near side. Now, before I go to Pat Cooney for a market update, he's got form of the horse of yours, Brian Meehan, isn't he? A really exciting horse called Rahik. Perhaps we could have a line on him. That's the owner.
Funny enough, it was the racing manager. Yeah, lovely horse. I mean, we were going to run him at the weekend, and I think the ground just probably going to be a little bit slow for him at Haydock. He's in the Balmoral. There's another race that week that might suit him better. I don't want to rush into too much with him, really. I think he's going to be a lovely horse for next year as well.
You've had some top-class horses over Hamdan Ahmad to him, hasn't he? Could he just be one? Pat Cooney then. Where's the punter's money going in the Cambridgeshire?
Well, it's been all about 2 horses, Anti-Post Dave. Sinjari of William Haggis, who won the John Smiths at York. He's very, very popular. And the other one, of course, is a Tempest of Roger Charlton. They've been dominating the market, but the draw's been interesting here. Sinjari has drawn 6, and he's got his best form on fast ground. He's taken out of a few races on soft recently, so that could be good, bad, or indifferent, couldn't it? And the other fella, Tempest, he's actually drawn 23, so he probably has a better profile, really. Tempest. He looks at, dare I say, the group horse in the handicap in the race. And when he won at Ascot last time out, Connections was nominating the Cambridgeshire for him, and why not? Because he's well handicapped, on the basis, I hope it isn't going to be too fast for him. Well, I think they're going to get their way in that. So I could imagine Tempest being stronger in the market than Sinjari for sure in the race. But as you've touched on, there's many you could give a chance to. I think Illarab is interesting, and William Haggis, who only won 7 days ago at Newbury on the Saturday. Very rare William Haggis turns run round so quickly after just 7 days. Normally he's a very patient man. Obviously the handicap is going to get hold of the horse soon enough, but I think it's interesting. He must have a solid chance as well. Kieran Fallon aboard there. So my eye is drawn to Tempest at stall 23, Illarab in 12. But, you go by the stats, and as Keel's alluded to, the last 4 winners of the race, 29, 21, 29, 28. So with Tempest, you've got the draw and the progressive profile as well. So a bit dull and boring to tip a favourite in a handicap, but hasn't seemed a bad policy every Saturday so far this season.
Well, that's the Cambridgeshire. Then the panel have helped you get in the know. What do you like? Get your comments down below. Time to welcome on board the guys at myracing.com. Check out their website for all the tips and expert analysis. Got a huge Twitter following as well, and they're having a good year. Bidding to get a double back on the board this Saturday. Who have they gone for? Well, they're giving a Gallic nod, because in the Cheveley Park they're going for Miss Amulet, and then 3:15 at the Curragh. Sneaky one this. Get on high definition. Time for the four-timer of the weekend. According to the panellists, this will be your four-timer. I like in the 205 at Haydock. That will be on a televised race as well. Horse called Milltown Star for Mick Shannon. Softed a better up there. Made it a 2-horse race, and at the prices, he's the one I like. Juicy price. Paul Kealy.
I like Milltown Star. Hope you made it a 2-horse race with alternative fact. But no, I'm going Bell Rock in the Cambridgeshire. I know it's 29 runners, but I really, really fancy this horse to run well. I'll be disappointed if he's not in the frame.
Is that going to be a 2-pointer in the paper?
It is a 2-pointer, yes.
Happy days. Brian Meehan, give us a weekend winner.
Happy Romance, Cheveley Park. I think it's very obvious.
Absolutely lovely. Pat Cooney, is yours so obvious?
Well, I hope so. I'm going to the 440 at Newmarket. Galleon, trained by Marcus Dragoning, in form, Jim Crowley. Should have won at Doncaster 2 weeks ago. Everything went wrong for him. He fluffed the start. He ran too free. It all just went wrong for him. He only got beat a length. He went up £2 for it. He was the moral winner of the race, so I can take the £2 rise in the weights. Galleon, 440 Newmarket for me.
Pat Cooney in a forgiving mood. There are your weekend winners. Well, that's it then here for this week on What a Shout. What a weekend we have. Enjoy the sport wherever you are. This is myself, Dave Orton, signing off. Brian Meehan, thanks for joining us from Manton. Good luck for the rest of the season ahead. Let's hope that strike rate gets even better.
Thank you.
Pat Cooney, you're at Newmarket, I'm assuming.
Yes, I'm presenting the trophy for the winner of the Bet365 Cambridgeshire. Been won by Frankie Dettori the last 2 years. They've been terrible results, so the directors have warned me. Make sure we have a winning race this time around.
Those jockeys are shuddering now at the thought of winning the biggest prize, aren't they? Absolutely. Paul Kealy, cheers.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, my daughter goes to university tomorrow.
Oh, is she going to be allowed home for Christmas?
First time away, and my wife has very kindly decided to take her, so I shall be sitting at home on my own, empty house in front of the telly, watching Newmarket. And it won't be alcohol-free.
Beautiful. There we are then. Thank you for watching. Let's hope you've enjoyed the show. Get your comments below. Like the streams if you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. #WhatAShout. Get your comments in. We want questions for the panellists. We love to lead them. Don't forget to download the free Racing Post app. You can do that on the App Store or the free Google Play Store. Don't forget, gamble responsibly. You want to be here at the end of the weekend. Enjoy that sport.